After months of disagreements and negotiations, the Senate has finally voted to pass the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. The vote passed 69-30 with 19 Republicans joining all 50 Democrats. Apparently, there's no time to waste. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has already introduced the second part of their agenda, a separate $3.5 trillion budget resolution. The Democrats are hoping to push this through as fast as possible, but one senator is asking Republicans to read it all the way through before deciding.
About infrastructure at all. It's about woke politics. Why is President Biden so enthusiastically for it? Because it advances his far left agenda. The Green New Deal, elements of it across this bill, the climate change agenda, it's stuffed into this bill, quotas for this, that, and the other in this bill. So this is a bill that is about the woke political agenda of the left. It is being paid for with this massive pork barrel spending, and I just hope Republicans will open their eyes to what's actually in the bill. You know, when you get a bill this late in the process that's 2,700 plus pages long, sometimes it's tempting not to actually look and see what's in the bill. Folks should look and see what's in this bill. I think it's going to be awfully hard to explain to Republican voters that we have gone along, or some Republicans have gone along with this kind of an agenda, this sort of a social agenda, this kind of pork barrel spending. And so I think it's absolutely vital that Republicans take a principled stand and say we're not going to be part of Joe Biden's left-wing agenda. We're not going to advance his woke political agenda. We're going to stand up for the principles that we share and believe in as Americans. We're going to stand up for some basic fiscal responsibility. And for those reasons, we're going to vote no on this bill.
Join me now, co-founder and chief strategist at GDP Advisors, Seth Denson. So Seth, that amount pretty eye-popping, but the idea that the Democrats are already trying to move forward another $3.5 trillion bill, and I saw Senator Ron Johnson, he put in quotes infrastructure, and we've kind of joked about this human infrastructure, which isn't really necessarily roads, bridges, and everything else. It's like anything that has nothing to do with roads and bridges. And so also, too, many people are comparing it kind of to like the Green New Deal. This is like the way that they're going to slip it in.
Well, that's exactly right. And to your point, Stephanie, I mean, listen, we can look at this $1 trillion package and go, how much of this was actual infrastructure? About half of it was. About half of it I was in support of, right? We do need to improve our roads and bridges. I'm all for infrastructure and things like broadband expansion and those things. We need that as a nucleus for our country to continue to thrive. All that being said, that was just the appetizer for what the left is now going to be pushing, which is this $3.5 trillion human infrastructure bill, which is a lot of stuff that we saw in that Green New Deal. We're talking universal pre-K, we're talking college tuition, we're talking the expansion of the tax credits for children, and the list goes on and on. But here's the thing. It's not even written yet. Matter of fact, the senators in the Democratic side have pushed for the House of Representatives to have this written by September the 15th. It's $3.5 trillion, but we don't even know what's in it. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out.
What do you think about this per mile fee? I don't think a lot of people have been talking about that, but that is outrageous. And I get the argument here is that, okay, well, now people have electric cars and they're not paying their fair share, but then they don't figure out a way to reduce taxes. It's just like tax after tax after tax.
Well, that's right. We call that a Texas two-step here. And here's why I think that's in there. So for those that don't know, on page 508 of this budgetary bill that just passed, this $1 trillion infrastructure bill, is a pilot program for now Secretary Buttigieg to test this idea of a per mileage tax. And now I'm going to clarify that. It's not supposed to be called a tax. It's very clear that it's supposed to be called a fee. We could probably thank Chief Justice John Roberts for that. But nonetheless, this is so that President Biden can say, I'm not raising taxes on anyone under $400,000 of annual income, yet I'm going to now charge you a fee based on the per miles that you drive. This is a pilot program, and I think this is in advance of the $3.5 trillion bill, because under reconciliation, which is the only way they pass this massive bill, under reconciliation you have to abide by the Byrd Rule. Now, one of the provisions of the Byrd Rule is that you cannot increase to the national deficit, which means that Democrats are going to have to come up with a lot of tax dollars to figure out how to pay for $3.5 trillion of new spending. And I think that's what's in this first bill, is a setup for the second bill, which is coming very quickly.
Yeah. And then you think of something like that, who it would affect the most, and that's like the middle class and working people that actually need to drive places, and then consumers too. It's going to make things very expensive.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. All of the costs associated with anything that's done over long-haul trucking, which pretty much is everything that we buy at the grocery store, right? Or even short-haul trucking, all of those things are going to have a tacked on per mileage fee if this plan goes through, which means on top of inflation that we're being told is transitory, now we're going to have more fees, which means that inflation, not so transitory.
Yeah. There's some good news. We saw the jobs report. It had a midsummer boost. Okay, that's great. But I want to make sure that people aren't confused. Replacing jobs that were already there before the pandemic isn't exactly like a new job.
Yeah, there's still 8 million jobs available in the United States right now. So we're getting close to actually filling those jobs. And so, yeah, listen, I'm an American first. I'm all for good reports coming out. Now, it's interesting, though, that the Biden administration was quick to take a victory lap on this, while simultaneously the private sector jobs report that came out from ADP earlier in the week, they didn't even want to talk about that because that missed its mark by over 50% of projected jobs. And again, that's because in the private sector, we're having a really hard time getting people back to work, which shockingly is hard to do when you're paying them to stay home. So my hope is that we can continue to grow, that we can continue to expand employment, but we do need to get people back to work.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit tough now that we're dealing with the Delta variant. So we'll see how long this goes on for. I wanted to play a clip from Senator Ted Cruz. He gave a speech on cryptocurrency, and that speech is going viral. Roll tape.
Let's exercise a brief, shining moment of common sense. And let's recognize, if we gathered all 100 senators in this chamber and asked them to stand up and articulate 2 sentences defining what in the hell a cryptocurrency is, that you would not get greater than 5 who could answer that question. Given that reality, the barest exercise of prudence would say we shouldn't regulate something we don't yet understand. We should actually take the time to try to understand it. We should hold some hearings. We should consider the consequences. We shouldn't destroy people's lives and livelihoods from complete ignorance.
I kind of like the speech. I mean, he's not wrong. There's a lot of things that are hard to articulate about cryptocurrency for regular folks like us. I know there's some cryptocurrency experts who watch this show. That being said, what's your reaction?
You can add me to the list of those senators that probably couldn't properly define cryptocurrency, and I'm in the financial sector. No, listen, I think we've talked about this a lot, Stephanie, and I get hate tweets every time I say it. I do want cryptocurrencies to be regulated. I did not like the way that they were positioning it in this bill. I agree with Senator Cruz. We need to have hearings and better understand it. I think what the federal government was trying to do is protect people that don't understand it, but here's the reality. The federal government, well, they shouldn't regulate stupid. And if you don't understand something and you're investing in it, well, that's on you. And so I kind of agree with Senator Cruz here. We need to have a better understanding so we can put proper regulations in place.
All good points, Seth. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Steph.